This is gonna segue a little bit into another video that I made, but I don't really care because reality is they're all intertwined. But regardless, here we go. Also, I was originally intending on walking outside when I was about to shoot this video, but things changed a little bit, so here we are. I'm actually seated. However, let's talk a little bit about constant movement and about one more step. I forget where I read that. Excuse me, where I read it. It must have been somewhere online. Basically, one more step all the time. Don't stop. As in, don't stop. There's always another step to take. The proverbial story is the lion on the savannah, which is hunting gazelles, zebras, and what other animals that lions eat. I don't really know. I'm not a zoologist or a lion expert. But a lion has to eat. And if a lion doesn't eat, it starves to death and it dies, obviously. And that's no good. So when it's hungry and there's no food around, guess what the lion has to do? Well, it has to do what any sort of predator needs to do, namely to take one more step. One more step. Because if it stops when it's tired and there's no food around, well, guess what? The lion is going to starve, so it needs to take one more step. Right? That's how life works. And that's how energy works as well. That's why, personally speaking, I can never seem to stop moving. And what I mean by stop moving is, I don't mean physically moving. Actually, I do to some degree, but that's not what I'm aiming at right here, right now. What I mean is moving as in working. As an example, I'm sitting still right now. I'm not physically moving, but I'm doing something. I'm doing work. I'm recording this video on my phone. That's work. That's movement. That's movement business-wise, because I don't sit still. My requirement is, if I'm using my phone, if I'm using my laptop, if I'm using my iPad, if I'm using any sort of device or any whatever really, that I have to move, that I have to do something. Because otherwise, I'm not producing. I'm not doing anything. That's why I've set a goal of reaching 10K steps every single day, because it's good for me and it keeps me moving and it burns a few calories. But more important than that, it keeps me moving. And that movement actually inspires action. It inspires action through working harder on my business and through doing more things. See, when you're sitting still all day, it's kind of hard to get off your butt and start working, right? But if you're constantly moving all the time, if there's no sit still, if you do whatever you can to avoid sitting still, and when you are sitting still, you're actually working. I mean, like me, for instance, I need to write an email every single day, right? And to write that email, I actually have to sit still. I can't physically walk. Well, maybe I can. Maybe if I bought one of them, I don't know what you call them, but you got these walking office desks, whatever they're called. I'm sure you've seen them. These treadmill with a work desk-ish thing on them. I'm sure something like that could be arranged. I already know how or why, but I just can't see. I just can't imagine myself writing an email and walking at the same time. I don't really know how that would have turned out. Maybe it would have turned out fine. Probably it wouldn't have. But that's not the point. The point is, even though I'm physically sitting still, I'm doing work on my computer, on my laptop, on my iPad, whatever, even on my phone. Because that's a requirement to have. That's a philosophy of life that I have. And I'm not deviating from that, because that's what's ultimately is gaining me more recognition, more attention, and ultimately more money. And also, this is important, that sort of movement inspires more action because guess what? If I'm outside and I'm walking 10K steps and I've just arrived back home, maybe I'm a little bit sweaty, maybe I'm even a little bit tired, whatever. Maybe I'm a little bit physically exhausted and drained. That really doesn't matter. But since I'm already in movement, since I'm already in motion, it's so much easier for me to sit down and start doing other stuff because I'm already moving, right? As opposed to if I was sitting all day and I just kept delaying things, I just kicked the can down the road, I didn't do anything, well, then it gets so hard to get off your arse and start working. That's why I don't start scrolling or doom scrolling, whatever they're calling it on social media. And in fact, I'm strongly considering deleting my X account because X and most other social media, they're pretty much just garbage. I don't like having them because there's just nonsense there. I'm not getting any good leads, or so I think, and there's absolutely no reason for me at all to keep these social media accounts if they're not giving me any sort of proper leads from my email list, because that's what I'm doing here. I'm releasing these videos in order for you to subscribe using the link below this episode in the description field to opt into my email list. That's why I'm giving away these free tips, because there's way more valuable tips in my email newsletter, and there's also more possibilities. Anyway, let's get back to the point here. Or actually, that was pretty much the point, because I don't have any more things to talk about in that regard, really, other than get off your arse and start working, because that's what life is all about. And when you're moving all the time, that inspires more action. Movement inspires action, which ultimately means more energy. I think that's a good way to round off this video. So if you like this video, if you want to hear more, if you like the idea around the concept of generating more energy in your life, then get subscribed to my email list by clicking on the link, in the episode description below this video, and I will see you there. Bye-bye.